and welcome to another edition of Military Witnesses to UAP. My name is Shannon Scott. I'm here with my co-host, Rob Heatherly. I'd like to introduce my first guest. The list of accomplishments are too long to list. We only have an hour, folks, so I'll just go over the most important ones. Like myself, he's a Florida boy. He's a great son, a great father, a great husband. He's a dear friend to Rob and I. When it comes to patience, this man is truly a saint. It is truly my honor to introduce Lue Elizondo.
How you doing, Shannon? Shannon, thanks very much for having me. You and Rob, I really appreciate it. And I'll tell you, I don't deserve those accolades, but I do appreciate it. And I will tell you, from one veteran to another, it really is an honor and privilege to be here with you folks today and your audience. It's something as many people know, I'm not doing podcasts anymore. But I decided to make an exception for this because this is really about serving your country and serving your fellow man, and about really recognizing those individuals who have given so much for their country. People always say, "Wow, Lou, you sacrificed a lot," and they say, "Well, actually, all not to be cliche here, but all gave some, but some gave all." And I certainly haven't. I did not pay the ultimate sacrifice like many of our friends and comrades have. So for me, it's an honor and privilege to be here with you guys today. Thank you so much, and to your great audience. Thank you for spending the morning or afternoon or evening, whatever it may be for you. Thank you for spending it with us here.
I really am very honored that you're here. I need to just go over a few things so you understand what's going on. As a former Master at Arms First Class in the United States Navy with 20 years of experience, I have conducted hundreds of interviews. You can expect hard-hitting questions that may make you feel like you're in the hot seat. Are you ready, Lou?
I'm ready. Yes, sir, I am.
All right, first question. Let's get straight to the point. How are you?
Well, I'm alive, so I must be doing okay, right? The alternative, I'm on this side of the dirt, so I woke up on the right side of the dirt this morning. I always tell people, any day above ground is a good day, and I mean it sincerely. I don't have people shooting at me. I don't have bombs under my car, so it's pretty good. Overall, I'm a very blessed man. I have two amazing daughters. The greatest accomplishment of my life, and of course an amazing wife, and we have our health and we have our well-being. So yeah, I put it succinctly, I'm doing, I guess, a lot better than I deserve. How about that?
That's great, Lou. Now everybody knows you love Jeeps. Now, what's the story you were telling me about the one that you restored from the side of the road?
Yeah. So, well, I've got a lot of Jeep stories. I am a Jeep guy, and let me, if I can preface it, why. It's not the flashy. Don't get me wrong; those new flashy Jeeps, the Rubicons and Mojaves, are awesome machines. They really are, and they've come so far. But what I'm in love with are the old, what we call the old war girls. These are the little simple Jeeps with like a T90 transmission and a Hurricane block motor, which is a little four-cylinder. It's basically a glorified lawnmower. And to think that these little Jeeps saved so many lives and actually won the war for us. These Jeeps were used for everything. Jeep comes from the initial word GP, general purpose vehicle, and they were just shortened to Jeep. And to see these little things do what they did in combat. And there's actually, you can pull up video of these things. In some cases, these Jeeps are literally on fire, being driven around, saving people's lives. It's just incredible. And to me, as after the big wars, World War II and Korean War, and to some degree even Vietnam, a lot of these military Jeeps were repurposed, and they found themselves. I live here in Wyoming, where agriculture and farming is big. So the manufacturers, Willys and Kaiser, and even Ford to some degree, agreed that they would basically turn these war Jeeps and sell them now to the open market as utility vehicles for farms. And so, after serving their country, these Jeeps come out and spend another 20, 30, 40 years in the fields, plowing fields and hauling stuff. And then they're just left there to rot and just kind of wither away. And it breaks my heart. And so, it's kind of like taking in a stray dog or a stray cat. I'm a sucker for animals. I'm also a sucker for these old Jeeps. I come in and, for pennies to the dollar, I'll see if the owner is willing to part ways with them. And I bring them to my little shop here, and I restore them, and I put them in a nice environment where they're not going to be mice eating them and rust. And I restore them, and they're really easy. I mean, these things can you can basically restore one in a long weekend if you have, and they're just such a pleasure to drive. I mean, they don't go very fast. 45 miles an hour if you're lucky downhill during a hurricane. But what they represent to me is so much more. It's really the ethos of what the Jeep means, and of course the stories behind them, the veterans that drove these things. In some cases, people who lost their lives in them, and in other cases, the stories of these little Jeeps serving as ambulances and pulling people out of the field and saving their lives. I don't know. Maybe I'm an uncured romantic, but it's funny because I'll drive one of my various little old Jeeps around, and of course they're all olive green, right? And they've OD green, and they all have olive drab green. They have a big American star on it because I'm patriotic. What can I say? Unabashedly. And so I drive these around, and you got these guys with these big monster souped up Jeeps, and they'll go by, and it's amazing. It's almost like there's this homage. They recognize, the grandfather, right, where they got their roots from, and they all slow down, and they all kind of give you that Jeep fist bump, and kind of a sign of solidarity and respect. And it's just really cool, man. So depending on which story you're talking about, every one of my Jeeps is like a child. It's got its own story. Some I found neglected in a field and was able to save them. In other cases, people saw my love for Jeeps and just said, "Hey, listen, I've got this old Jeep. It's rusting in a field or rusting or sitting in a barn that's not doing anything, and I don't know how to rebuild it." And in some cases, they just gave them to me because they know they come back and they see my shop here and they're like, "Oh my God, I want my Jeep to be back in its glory days." And so they'll just say, "Hey, here's a title. Take it. I know it's going to have a good home." I don't sell them. Although, at some point, what I'd like to talk to you guys about is maybe doing a charity where, I don't know, maybe as we find a Jeep, we restore it, get together with some folks and maybe, give the highest bidder or the winner, if you will, give a Jeep.
Now that sounds great, and we'll talk a little bit more later on in this interview because we have a whole hour with you today, Lou, and I appreciate you spending the time.
I feel sorry for you guys if you're stuck with me for an hour.
Now, you and I are Florida boys, and being in the Navy, I've been all over this world, but the places I haven't been, it's actually the United States. I haven't been throughout the United States. So in Wyoming, are there any mosquitoes in Wyoming?
Not, what? We don't really have a lot of mosquitoes. We will have a few, but where I live, I'm right at the foothills of the Bighorn Mountains. We have a lot of wind. And so, wind and mosquitoes don't really go hand in hand. We do have some flies because we got a lot of cattle. We actually have more cows here in Wyoming than we have people. There are more people that live in the Bronx than there are in the entire state of Wyoming. In fact, I have to be careful because the locals get mad at me when I talk about it because they're always like, no, Wyoming doesn't exist. Tell people it's fake. It's not real, because they love their privacy out here, but it's a magical place. We've got elk, we've got deer, both muley and whitetail. We've got bears, we have moose, we even have wolves and cougar. It's an incredible wild place. If you ever watch the TV show Yellowstone, that's Wyoming, pretty much. Of course, it's supposed to be in Montana, but it's pretty much the same topography. We actually have less people here in Wyoming, and we don't have the fancy country clubs that maybe some of the other rich folks have in Montana. But it's wonderful here. We got a lot of vets. It's funny here. When I first moved here, I didn't know this. Like half of SEAL Team 6 has places up here in the mountains where they just, get weird and disappear. And, just fall off the grid. A lot of federal law enforcement, ex-federal law enforcement folks live here. My neighbors are former members of various task forces and FBI and HRT, and so and a lot of military. Wyoming treats their veterans very well. We have excellent services here. Everybody is very, very proud of the men and women who served in uniform. It's kind of, I hate to say this, but kind of how other places I wish were. But I had to come to Wyoming to find it.
And how'd you find out about Wyoming? Was it a newsletter when you were working in the Pentagon?
No, brother. No. I was in California. We moved there when I left the Pentagon and joined TTSA. Part of the requirement is I had to move out to California, and well, I guess I just I didn't fit in so well. Don't get me wrong. There's lovely people there, but I'm at a point in my life where this is gray, not blonde, and I love my privacy and I love my anonymity. Out here, a person is judged not by what job you have or who you know or who your agent is. Out here, it's what type of truck you drive. Yeah. So it's amazing. So we were coming through, and we stopped we looked at all sorts of places in Wyoming. Went to Cody, went to Sheridan and a bunch of other places, and we just by luck stopped in this little tiny town to get gas, and we never left. We both looked at each other and said, "This is it. This is where we were supposed to be," and we've never regretted a single day. We have now 4 German Shepherds. We had 2, and now we have 2 more. So we've got 4 German Shepherds with a little bit of property here, and I'm right on the border of BLM land. Here, BLM means Bureau of Land Management. So we have a lot of state land here. So we'll take the dogs out and go hiking. Some of the best hiking you'll ever find is out here. Just natural spring waters. There's no regulation, so you literally can take a tent and go anywhere you want and live if you want. It's just incredible. Great fishing, great outdoors, great skiing in the winter. You can go to Colorado and spend $300, a day for a lift ticket, or you can come here and it's $30 a day, including your ski rentals. It's just a different way of life out here, and we found it by I'd say by luck, but really probably I suspect God had a bit of a plan in it too, as God always does. So I suspect it was meant to be, and here we are.
Yeah, when you were talking about it's just meant to be, one of the most unique circumstances I've seen is that I've been friends with you, and Rob's been friends with you, and then Rob and I became friends, and you were the common friend. That's story.
It's as you guys probably know, I'm not. I get told all the time, "Oh, you're famous or you're a celebrity," all that nonsense. But I'm not. I'm just a vet. I'm just a boot wearing, ground pounding Army guy, and I happen to be assigned some very interesting positions in my career, and I felt committed enough where my obligation to my countrymen I wasn't over. But I find that for me, I get along with veterans pretty easy. It's kind of, for me, I think there's a mutual understanding and respect for what it is to serve your country, and I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed to have you both as friends and call you friends, and I mean that sincerely. I don't have a whole lot of friends. Friends. I think people have confused a lot of times what an acquaintance is versus a friend.
Yeah.
For me, it's different. It's different. I understand veterans. I understand the military. I understand that mindset and the mentality, and I respect greatly the sacrifices people have. Look, you and I both know that there are people right now that may be watching this at some point who's lost an arm or a leg or worse, right? Lost a loved one. We forget that we're very unique in this country. We have a very small and voluntary military. It's completely voluntary, and it's very small. It's very capable, very capable. But these are people who have volunteered to serve their country. And by the way, their families, let's not forget, have also volunteered, right? They're serving their country too. The families of these servicemen and women in uniform. And so that's profound. What a gesture to your fellow man to give your potentially even your life, so others may enjoy freedom even if you can't. And so for me, that's what it's about. And that's why I get along with my vets and my brothers and sisters in uniform, whether that uniform be a blue uniform like a police officer, or it's a green uniform in the military, or it's a white uniform like a nurse or a doctor, or it's it's a plaid uniform like a school teacher. Serving to me is it's a higher calling. And it doesn't, by the way, let me preface, it doesn't make any one of us better than anybody else. It's not nothing to do with being a better person. It's about selflessness and about self-sacrifice and about, commitment and doing things for a greater good, which is something this world is woefully short on these days. This has been a very much a me instant gratification type society we live in now, where everybody wants, it's like Burger King, right? You want have it your way and have it now. Well, The truth is that's an illusion. Anything worth having is you have to sacrifice for, and it's a duty and a responsibility, especially if you're willing to do that for other people who are unwilling or unable to do it for themselves.
Now, Lou, I know you have a bunch of German Shepherds. I just happen to have one myself now. But how's your pup Sarge doing after post-surgery?
He's doing great. He's had 2 surgeries. He was born with a genetic disorder in the front right elbow, which basically some of the bones don't fuse properly. And I'll tell you, Shannon and Rob, my dogs are like my children, and I mean it. There's nothing I'll beg, borrow, and steal for them, because they are a living organism, and there's kind of this moral contract you have with a pet, and that is you're going to be there for them when they need you, just like they're going to be there for you when you need them. So he's doing quite well. Thank you for asking. Yeah, Sergeant, he's doing great. He is an odd little character. He is probably, if anybody's ever looking at getting a German Shepherd, if you want a dog, don't get a German Shepherd. If you want a kid, get a German Shepherd, because the German Shepherds are probably the least like any dog you'll ever have. They are very independent, extremely intelligent. I'd hate to put that dog toe to toe, on some sort of IQ test with me, because I'd probably be embarrassed. But they are incredibly clever, and they're very emotional. They have this weird attachment that, there's a saying about German Shepherds. There's 2 things about a German Shepherd that are true. First of all, they're like potato chips. You can't just have one. And the second thing is that German Shepherds are made of Velcro. You don't know that until you get one, meaning they get stuck to you and they don't want to leave you alone. Whether you're going outside or you're going to the bathroom or anything else, they don't care. They just want to be with you. They'll sit on your feet. They're stuck to your leg. It's really neat. So my wife and I, when we're watching movies at night with, the whole, become like a big, pack of wolves down there. Sergeant is the really emotional, needy one. He wants to be in my wife's lap. And that worked when he was about, 15, 20 pounds. But he's pushing 90, and he's only 9 months old now, and he's getting bigger and bigger. So now what was once a little teeny lap dog is now a giant, looks like a small bear sitting on my wife's lap. And of course, my wife doesn't help the situation, because what does she do? She reinforces it and coddles him, and, oh, you're such a cute little baby, and blah, 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 blah. Well, this thing is enormous now, and it's getting harder and harder for him to sit on your lap, because your legs go numb. And after a while, you're like, then he falls asleep. So now he's dead weight. And so now you need like a forklift to pick him up and scoot him off, just so you can use the bathroom. So it's every day is something new. We go out here, run around like idiots, and during deer season, I've got to keep a very close eye because they like to hunt too.
Yeah.
So, got to keep them close to you because if they see an elk or a deer, man, they're going to wind up in Idaho before long.
And city folk with a deer tag doesn't know the difference between a goat, a dog, and a deer, so you got to keep them indoors.
No, we had actually, but back when I was in West Virginia, one of the neighbors thought my dog was a coyote, our female German Shepherd. She's a short hair. He thought she was a coyote, and fortunately, he saw the bright pink bandana that Paris wears around her neck. And he called.
Why is that
like, "Hey,
coyote wearing a pink bandana?"
Yeah, right.
Right. Wild.
Yeah. So yeah, like no, that's my dog. He's like, well, okay, good. I'm glad I almost shot it. I thought it was a coyote. I'm like, no, that's Paris. Please don't shoot her.
Oh, I love talking about dogs. I'll be talking about my dog all day. Next question, and your wife really likes this question, by the way. Where do you see yourself in 1 year, 5 years, and 10 years from now? That's a 3-part question, Lou.
Wow. Where do I see myself in 1 year? Hopefully in the living room with you guys having a beer, and laughing and joking. In 5 years, maybe in a position where I could do some good. Maybe something like Congress, perhaps. And in 10 years, I can't even think that far ahead. If I'm still here and alive, maybe back in the living room with you guys again, having another beer and laughing and joking.
That'd be awesome.
Are you you just said something about Congress. What's your plans on that? People I know right now, they just heard that, and you kind of opened the door, so I have to put my foot in there, try to be somewhat of a reporter, but I'm not a reporter. I'm an investigator. What can you go more into depth in that comment there, Lou? Not to pry. I'm prying.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No. So Shannon, when you serve your country, as you know, that service never stops. And I'm getting to a point where I'm getting very, very concerned about some of the ways that this country is investing and not investing in certain areas. The greatest national security imperative, the greatest national treasure, isn't how much petroleum and oil one country has, or how much technology, or how much natural resources like trees and wood and whatnot and rare earth minerals. It's the next generation. It's the future generation. And unfortunately, our generation's been this new generation's been hijacked. They've been told some things that aren't true, and they've been given ideas that have not been helpful to our society. They've been given false expectations and promises, and I'm very concerned because at the end of the day, you have political leaders in this country that aren't leaders at all. And there's a difference between diplomacy and politics. It's the same act, but for different purposes. Diplomacy is doing something and sacrificing for the greater good of the collective whole, where politics is doing the same thing but for self-gain. And I think we've got a significant problem in this country. We can't have an honest conversation anymore about who we are as a people. I think we've come to the point where even free speech has been hindered to a point. I'm just gonna speak from the heart here. Look, I can tell you this. I'm Latin. I'm Cuban, right? So I think people should have the right to speak their mind, even if that speech is hurtful. Because at the end of the day, what is most sacred is our freedom to exchange ideas and speak our minds. And at the end of the day, when you hold yourself hostage to something simply because it hurts your feelings, that word becomes more powerful than it was ever intended to be. And you actually wind up holding yourself in bondage to something that you shouldn't be held tied down to. I think we have to have an honest, frank conversation without trying to hurt people's feelings and say, okay, what do these words mean? I mean, a lot of people say, well, this hurts my feeling. Okay, but do you know where it comes from? Do you even know? No, you don't. You know, simple things that we talk about in politics. And look, I'm going to go out here on a limb, and there's people that are mad at me. Okay, but let's have the frank conversation. Let's try to do it in a fair-minded, respectful way. So when people will say you have, you know, far left ideals and far right. So far left ideas like Antifa, for example, I'm not supporting or defending it or condemning it. Just you have far left ideals and far right ideals. The problem is we're not doing the due diligence and understanding things. So, for example, when people say, the Nazis, white supremacy and Nazis, again, I'm being Latino myself. They say, well, it's the Nazi party is the neo-Nazi party is a far right extremist group. Well, let's look at that. Is it really? Where does the word Nazi come from? Well, it comes from the German word National Socialist Movement. Socialism is in the very title. Socialism is a left-leaning effort, not right. So again, I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's not good, but either way. But let's be specific about terminology here. Just like when someone says a very terrible word, and you can edit this out if you want, but I'll say because I'm Latino. When someone says the word right, because that's terrible. Okay, well that's fine, but let's for just a moment let's dissect that word. What does it mean? Where does it come from? Well, it comes from the truncation of do you speak Spanish? Speak. It's always one of those. It's not even a real word. So to hold myself, in bondage because someone called me a name, guys, that's life. I used to tell my young agents, what are you going to do when someone calls you a bad name? Are you going to whip out your gun and point it at their head? No, you can't do that. Right. No, you have to take the moral high road. Another example, case in point, when I was in Korea, I was in Korea for a little over a year and I had a Korean MIS, which was basically think of a Korean national who has a security clearance who's helping you with your military intelligence functions. And there were some Katusas, which were Korean augmentees to the United States Army. They're laughing and laughing. And I asked, what are they laughing at? And they were laughing at the word, which is considered very derogatory here in the United States, the word. And I was offended. I said, why are you laughing? And it took my Mr. Shin, my Korean augmentee, I'm sorry, my MIS to explain to me. He says, do you know where the word comes from? And I said, no, but it's a bad word. And he says, no, it comes from the Korean War. When the United States came over to Korea to fight in the war. You had, for example, Private Johnson come up and said, hey, I'm American. My name's Private Johnson. What's your name? Well, when he went like that, the Korean looked at him and he said, Mingguk. Mingguk means Korean. Okay. Doesn't even mean, correction. Mingguk means American. So when he said, I'm an American, the Korean looked at him and said, oh, Mingguk. Mingguk means American. Well, unfortunately, the American understood it to be me. Oh, you are a, no, you, the American. That's right. That's what that means. And so my point being is look, I'm not defending the use of hateful speech. What I'm simply saying is that once we understand where a lot of these words come from, they lose their power. They lose their power over us. And the worst thing we can do is to allow a word to hold us back. That's what we're doing when we can't have a conversation. I think actions are more important than words. I think if someone were to call me a derogatory, look, I'd be called everything in the book, man. And you guys too in combat, right? You can't pick up your M16 and shoot somebody because they scream at you, "Hey, go home!" Yeah, I heard. You know how many times I heard that when I was in Latin America? I'm like, dude, I'm not even, I'm like Cuban. But at the end of the day, we have to have these honest conversations. To now the point where this new generation is so afraid to even have a conversation, whether it's about sexuality or religion or politics or anything else. That I think that's dangerous. I think we have to be able to listen to other people's opinions, even if those opinions do not comport or conform to our own. We have to. All speech is sacred. All speech should be protected. I believe it is it is part of our. Freedom of speech is an inalienable right, whether I agree with the speech or not. And I think we have to be careful because we're starting to go down a very slippery road where now we're going to have the thought police to make a determination. Right. what words are appropriate today and what words won't be appropriate tomorrow, and I mean, at that point, it, becomes a free for all, and the Bill of Rights mean nothing. And so these are some of the concerns I have. Another concern I have is the excessive spending in government. I would be draconian if I was to be in charge of the Pentagon, let's say tomorrow. The first thing I would do is say, okay, all you SCSs and general officers that have your reserve parking, no more. Now it's first come, first serve. If Private Snuffy gets to that parking spot before you because he woke up earlier or she woke up earlier than you, guess what? They're going to have the better parking. So you might as well wake up early. 2, no more of these, you're going to have a driver take you from meeting to meeting. No, you can get your happy little ass into your own car and you can drive, or you can take public transportation like everybody else. No more Lear jets. From now on, you can go to an Air Force base, and if there's a gray tail sitting on the runway and it's ready to burn somewhere, you can take that plane. And that's right. You can sit in a cargo net like everybody else. You do not need your own private Lear jet or anything like that.
Max flights.
Yeah, Mac flights, baby. I would turn around and when it comes to OERs, I saw this time and time again with the senior leadership. They would go and give their subordinates lower scores for their performance evals, and then they would give themselves all these pumped up, elevated, scores. How can you do that? If your primary job as a leader is to lead, then you know what? Here's my recommendation. Your highest score is now going to begin at the lowest score you give one of your subordinates, because you cannot say you are an effective leader if your people are doing either standard or substandard work. How can you tell me with a straight face that you succeeded as a leader? No, you didn't. You failed. So guess what? From now on, your highest score is going to begin at the lowest score that you give out to any of your subordinates. These are type of things that I would do in the government that could I think, low hanging fruit. I'd get rid of a lot of the nepotism that is there. No more appointments. From now on, you get there by skill. We're not going to paint anybody with any brush. I don't care about your sexuality, your race, your religion, your sexual orientation, nothing. In fact, when I used to take resumes at the Pentagon for jobs, I would make sure that all the names and the birth dates of these individuals, the data is taken off the resume before I reviewed it, because I didn't want to know. I didn't want to know if this was a woman or a man or what ethnicity that person might be. I'm looking at the skill sets. Can they do the job? And then, okay, I'd pull that resume and say, I want to hire these 2 people. And you know what? It worked out fantastic. It really was. It was successful. We had a great team. Everybody that was working with me, we had men and women in all shapes and sizes and colors and religions in my organizations, and we were an incredible team because no one cared. We didn't care. We didn't have labels for each other. We were all human beings, and we all worked together.
Can they do the job or not was all that mattered.
That's it.
I keep thinking about Reagan, where he said we're always perpetually a generation away from losing our freedoms. But like you had mentioned earlier, it seems these younger generations have been misinformed to where they think they can change society and focus on their personal freedoms and then try and bring down the structure of government that keeps us safe. And for them to have these rights within, that if we don't have conservative defenses to keep our fundamental country intact, then they don't have a safe place to pursue their individual freedoms and things.
Right. I mean, well, even simple things like knowing your history. How did we get to where we are today? Well, it takes a little bit of thought and effort, and don't be spoon-fed. Even the media today, and I'm on media all the time. I'm on both. People always accuse me, oh, you're always on conservative. Well, that's not true. I'm on a lot of liberal media as well, because this is a nonpartisan issue. But I think, media has also tended to become an echo chamber. So if you are left-leaning, you tend to listen to more liberal outlets. If you're more right-leaning, you tend to listen to more conservative outlets. And I think that's problematic because, unfortunately, we wind up, hearing what we want to hear instead of maybe an opposing view. That's why I watch all of it. I'll watch all sides because I want to know what all sides are thinking. And sometimes you might be surprised. You might learn a thing or two. So I see a lot of problems with our country. I also see a sense of entitlement by politicians who are in office for too long. I'm in favor of term limits. come in, get done what you need to get done, and get the hell out and move over. Stop making. How is it that a congressman or woman comes in, their only job they ever had before was maybe as a bartender, and now all of a sudden are worth, $22 million? Well, wait a minute. You're a public servant. I know what you make in Congress. How is it now you have $22 million, worth of assets? That doesn't make sense unless someone is taking. Right, it doesn't, right? But we're okay with that. There was a congressperson the other day that I guess was from, I think, Michigan, who said, yeah, I don't care about the gas prices because I drive an electric car. I laugh all the way to work. Well, wait a minute. Hold on a second. What about the school teachers? What about the doctors? What about the nurses? What about the truckers who are out there delivering all the goods that you need to survive, right? Because they don't have the luxury of driving an electric car and spending $80,000 on a car, on an automobile. They're barely getting by paycheck to paycheck, trying to put their kid through school and do homework while putting food on the table. How brazenly callous is that to come from an elected official to just say, meh, I don't care. You know what? Get the hell out of the job then if you don't care, because you're getting paid to care. And so these are the things that if I was ever, and this is probably why I'll never make it there, because I will be I'll be that guy. I'll be that guy that people will definitely not want to hear from, because I will hold my colleagues accountable, because I hold myself accountable. I will have a open forum every 3.5 months where my constituents will be able to give me a report card. I'm going to report, here's where we have succeeded on the promises. Here's where we failed. Here's what we're trying to go and fix those failures to make sure that we succeed. And by the way, these are the people that are getting in your way from doing the right thing.
Lou, I'd like to go ahead and say this. Hashtag Lou for Congress. Hashtag Lou for Congress. There you go.
Oh, man.
Well, at least I got 2 votes, right?
Yeah. All right. Something a little bit more lighthearted, Lou. Not like all the other questions were softball questions. But my wife, my wonderful wife that I've been married to for a quarter of a century now, she has a very, very important and thought-provoking question here. Are you a Star Wars fan?
Sadly, I'm not a science fiction fan, only because I never really had the luxury or time to be involved in it. I find it, what I find very interesting, Star Trek to some degree. If you watch some of the old cheesy episodes, like back from the late 60s, you'll see that the creators really had a vision of the future. Things like the Motorola flip phone, right, and tricorders, and being able to give injections without a needle. There were a lot of things that happened, that were foreseen in that, and so I appreciate that. My concern with Star Wars, it's become so commercialized.
Yeah.
To me, it's a bit like the Marvel universe and DC, where it's lost a lot of what originally it was meant to be. It was meant to be something very special, very one-off, and it's become so commercialized that it's I think it's lost a little bit of that. Now there's people that will disagree with me and say, well, I'm a big fan of Mandalorian and that's the best show that ever was, and that's fine. I've never seen it, so I can't judge. And I'm gonna be the first one to say, you know what, here I am, talking about something and I haven't done my research, right? We just finished talking about, hey, do your research before you speak, and here's an example where I really haven't. Maybe I should catch up on some of these. If your wife has a recommendation, let me know.
You may have lost a vote this afternoon.
Understood. Well, I still remember C-3PO and R2-D2. And I think when I was a very young child, I actually had, you guys will remember this because you're kind of old like me to some degree. You remember going into the mall, any mall, and then in there were these kiosks in the middle of the mall that had these T-shirts shops where they would do these like iron-ons, right? And you'd have a shirt,
Tampa.
Right, and they'd have this big press, and you pick out, I want that T-shirt, that color T-shirt with that iron on, and they would iron on. Of course,
Wars one on the wall.
Star Wars one. I had one of those, and of course, after 3 weeks, it starts to peel off and it starts
It
to feel
does.
crappy. You know, because it's an
Yeah,
iron-on.
it sure smelled
But
nice when they put it on.
yeah, they're
That
right. Remember that
smell when you
smell
press
too,
it,
right? That crisp
that
smell.
chemical
Yeah,
smell,
well,
that had a really neat smell to it when
yeah.
they press that
You could, if you really had the
on.
money, you could get the furry letters and numbers on your back of your, like, with your name or something on it, and they were kind of like this furry
Yeah, felt.
felt. Yeah, and
And
so I
blue,
had one
blue,
of those.
ultraviolet.
Was when I was a very young kid. Must have been in, I don't know, kindergarten, maybe even, or first grade. I had one of those shirts, and so somewhere floating around, there's a picture of me like this on the on a playground with the fresh smell of iron on and a Star Wars of
I
C3PO
remember
and
there was a
R2D2.
smell. There was a
Yeah.
smell
Yeah,
to that.
remember that smell? It
Yeah.
was a very, and it was very particular. It was probably carcinogenic as
Yeah.
hell right now. You probably
Yeah.
never looked at it, but
It had
I
a sweet
remember
smell to
that.
it.
Yeah, and it was always, ours was right in front of a music shop called Camelot Music. So that's where you had all the records, really cool artwork in the 70s of Journey and REO Speedwagon, and you kind of walk in and there was always that kid with long hair who was kind of the rebel, and you're like, whoa man, that guy's cool. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. The headshot.
And skating. We also had in Florida, remember this, Shannon, we had skating rinks.
That's where I
And
got my first kiss, by the way.
really, well, that's
Yeah,
where I got
yeah.
beat up probably the first time. But it was, we had Stardust skating ring, and I always remember the All Skate song. Because you have, this is now an All Skate. Everybody come out, and they had this real awful shag carpet along the side, the perimeter there, which would usually help
Oh,
me
yeah.
slow down because I was a terrible skater. I couldn't skate with a damn. So I'd get out there and I looked like a newborn, deer with wobbly legs, and I couldn't even do that fancy crossover you guys do when you're like
Oh
skating.
yeah.
No, I
When you're
couldn't. No,
going
I'd
around
have
the
to just
curve.
turn one, and I would try
Right.
to, play it off. But of course, I was going too fast. I could never make the curve, so I'd wind up, tumbling over and spilling off into the shag carpet, yeah, and then having that awful cardboard pizza and next to
We
the
had a
next to
golf
the
ball. I would go
Space
screaming over the
Invaders.
top of that.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
we we we're having so much fun here that time is flying by. We have 15 minutes. So the questions that I didn't get to, I apologize to the people that submitted those, but I need to get down to the business of some of the things we really need to talk about. And that is about, Rob, go ahead and talk about your interest in vet outreach.
Yeah, you have a big interest in Wounded Warrior Project as well, where you've had services from that. I think we all three have had a lot of impact from that program in a lot of different
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
That there's other ones out there as well. And as you mentioned earlier about our society being kind of a disposable and frenetic pace, too often things that are important to demographics like us get pushed to the wayside in the news cycle because newer and shinier things, and these are people that are getting pushed down in the news cycle, and they matter, and they sacrificed some of them everything for our freedoms and things, and we can't leave them behind. We've got to be able to not forget about them and let them know that they matter and their sacrifices matter. So we've talked about it before of what we could possibly do to help give that some more recognition again, and let them know they're not alone and show them some support.
Yeah, Rob, I agree. Wounded Warriors is a fantastic organization. They have benefited the lives of countless veterans, servicemen and women. Truly, truly, truly an amazing organization that I support 100%. There's another one as well. I think they call it PinUpsForVets or something like that. It's a female veteran run organization that does a lot of charity work as well for our men and women in uniform and former men and women in uniform. Another great, great organization that I support. You know, Veteran organizations to me, it's kind of like our own watching out for ourselves, right? Um, today's day and age is a lot different than the wars of our fathers. In World War II, they came home and they were told shut up and just go on with your life, and we had a lot of problems with PTSD. In Vietnam, it was the opposite. It wasn't come home and shut up. It was, you're a baby killer, and they'd spit on you in the streets, and you'd have to, if you wore a uniform, half the time people would shame you for it. We don't have that these days. We have military discounts at your local hardware store and movie theater. We have people coming up and thanking you and us and me for our service. So it's different times, but it doesn't mean that the pain isn't still there. There are a lot of people suffering, and these are veterans not just from the last few conflicts, but going all the way back. Wounded Warriors has helped countless people from Vietnam and Korean War, even World War II. It's an incredible organization. And again, the other one too, the PinUpsForVets, I think, they're much smaller, but I think they're making a hell of a difference. And I love the fact that our ladies are stepping up and taking the bull by the horns, if you will, and doing something, paying back. I'm very humbled by that. And then of course you have those.
The PinUpsForVets, they go out and donate calendars and sell calendars for fundraising, and they do a lot of in-hospital visits of veterans that are laid up healing in hospitals, where they go and do visits with the proceeds of that, and also deliver calendars at the same time to let them keep them motivated. So
it's an incredible organization. I've been following them since they started, and I really, my hat's off to them. At some point, would love for us to, if we could do something together as a charity, would be great. I've done them before. We did the last charity I did raise about, I think it was like $40,000 if I'm not mistaken. And as people know, we don't take a penny of it. Not a single penny goes to us. It went to St. Jude and to the International Humane Society last. But there's vet organizations out there that pair a lot of our veterans with service animals, dogs and cats, for that emotional support, and in some cases even physical support. So I'm a huge believer in it. If you guys ever want to do something as a charity, I'm happy to volunteer my time and resources and whatever I can do to make that happen. Like I said, maybe what we do is we raffle something off where the highest bidder gets a Jeep, right? Something like that, or maybe, I don't know, whatever. Maybe we could all just get on a call with a few of the highest bidders and just thank them personally for what they're doing.
I
agree. I think we should schedule a meeting in the future, and we'll get all the details, everything ironed out, and we'll just move forward from there.
I agree. I think that'd be great. Volunteering and to give back is something that I think is very important. And I think more society, should do that. There's great value to the fabric of society when you have people volunteering to do that, to help one another out. So whatever we guys decide to do, let's do it. I'd love to include your audience in it too, to whatever degree we can.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We only have 10 minutes left. As I got a question here, and then Rob, I need you to go through the questions through the forum and see if anybody has anything worth.
Shannon, can I jump in here real quick?
Yeah.
Let me caveat my opinion that I spoke about earlier about freedom of speech and conversation. Let me caveat here. At no time are my opinions intended to hurt anybody's feelings at all. What they are intended to do is challenge the current mindset, knowing that all our opinions change over time. Mine changes over time because we're human. What I want for our country is honest dialogue, without labels, without fear of retribution, because I think a certain way and therefore I'm going to be labeled a bigot or a racist or an elitist or whatever ist label we want to put on the end of that. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. And I think, again, I just want to make it very clear, if there's anybody in your audience that doesn't understand where I'm coming from, I'm not trying to hurt anybody. What I'm trying to do is actually heal. And doing that, sometimes you have to have the uncomfortable conversation to do that.
Peel back their biases and precepts and have them re-examine it and evaluate why they feel the way they do.
As time goes on and we see less of Lue in the spotlight, will there be others filling your shoes?
Well, there's people filling my shoes now. People like you guys, people like Sean Cahill, people like I gotta be careful. Maybe they don't want their names being said, but
Mhm.
there's a small army of people that are filling my shoes. No one needs to fill my shoes because I'm just one person. What makes us so powerful is we're an army, right? We
That's
stand
right.
shoulder to shoulder. Um, I'm just one of the tools in the tool bag. But if you want to be an effective craftsman or an effective mechanic, you need to have a lot of tools in your tool bag. And you don't want to use a hammer to do the work of a screwdriver. You don't want to use a screwdriver to do the work of a pair of pliers. We all have our nuanced talents, and so we're all working together. This is why we're having this conversation. This is why we are in this
Right.
conversation regarding UAP, because it's not about Lou. It's not just about Shannon or Rob. It's about all of us. It's about your audience, everybody who's tuning into this right now, hearing these words. You are part of that solution, even if you don't agree necessarily with my perspective. We're all on the same battlefield together, and we're all marching towards the same goal.
Rob, do we have any questions in the comment section?
First, I want to say it wasn't fair for the community to establish you arbitrarily as the point man, start to finish. And like you said, the leader's only as good as their team. And at some point, you had to light off a lot more team members to where they can carry this forward, because you can't carry this from start to finish on your own, and you shouldn't be expected to. And that was some unrealistic expectations of people that they placed on you and set you up to fail with social media, especially.
Well, Rob, it can't be about me, right? How many people out there in this topic, it becomes all about them, right? And what they think and their narrative, and give me money and I'll tell you the truth of, what I know. That's a mistake. We cannot deify individuals who are part of this effort. And that's the mistake many people before me have made. It becomes, they start believing their own hype. They've been told that they're a star, or they're special, or that they're the one, and they actually believe that shit. And that's a mistake, because we're not. We're just one of many. And one of the reasons to step down for me is because people started confusing the messenger with the message. And people start, even to this day, it becomes this cult of personality. I hear people all the time, "Oh, Lou, you're a global celebrity." Well, what does that mean? No, I'm not. I'm just Lue Elizondo. I'm just a dude. I'm not a celebrity. Say that for some 19-year-old, kid who believes that. I've been through 2 wars. I'm a 50-year-old man. I'm not that. I'm just a father and a husband and a patriot, and I try to be a good citizen as often as I can. But that's it. I'm not special. I'm not exemplary. I'm just finishing the job that I was given in the first place to do. It just turns out I had to leave the Department of Defense to do that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I completely admire your dedication.
Well, thank you. But you all have the same dedication, so I admire that about you guys.
Yeah, we're dedicated to talking on the phone till about 4 a.m. every night. So
yeah, we're gonna get it figured out.
Yeah, I'm glad we don't pay those long distance fees back in the day. Remember, you called like beyond your neighborhood on your home phone. And
I remember calling my wife from Korea, and I had a $900 bill for 1 month. And I only spoke to her maybe like 10 minutes on a weekend, because you had those AT&T prepaid cards. I didn't realize that you could do it. There was this DSN capability that allowed you to dial in, and then you could dial for free and all that stuff. But yeah, man, I remember those long distance phone bills very well.
Oh, I think I'm sick, Lou.
You're getting yelled at on party lines. A lot of people, they have a lot of questions, but I think fundamentally what they're asking or what they're wanting to know is, what kind of forward momentum is this in the short term and interim, and what are they to expect going forward? I mean, like with congressional hearings, that's something kicked around a lot still.
Yeah, I think don't be don't be surprised that more hearings may be forthcoming, and don't be surprised if you happen to recognize a face or two during those hearings.
So this isn't going to fall back
Outstanding.
like it did in to the last hearings in 1966, I believe it was. So it's not going to be pushed back into the bottle this time. It's going to stay lit.
No, we're well beyond that. Congress is a lot more savvy now. We've got some good people there that they understand what's going on. They're not going to let this off the hook. No, we've got some good people. Just like I said, yeah, I'm kind of angry with some of the members of Congress. I'm also very happy with some of the members of Congress. There's some folks out there that are really leading the charge right now. Besides, Marco Rubio, who we know, and of course Senator Gillibrand and some of the others. You also have members of the House. Congressman Tim Burchett, who's doing an absolute stellar bang up job. You have Congressman Gallagher and several others that are they're like a dog on a bone, baby. They are not letting this go.
They don't like being lied to either, and they've been lied to just like the rest of the American people for decades now, and that can't be allowed to stand. They've made multi-generations of people hiding the truth in our government and our military, and that can't be allowed to stand.
100%, absolutely.
I just not too long ago, somebody I know once said, "At the end of the day, the truth will come out."
Yeah, it does. Always does. It always does. And we can be afraid of it or we can be excited, but the truth is gonna come out either way. So probably best to have the conversation sooner rather than later.
Right. All right. Well, we're coming up on the top of the hour here. I do appreciate Lou coming on. It's such an honor for you, to me that you did this. I tell my I get a lot of street cred telling my kids that I know you, and
you might be surprised. That might work to your disadvantage at some point. Believe me, I have just as many people that say, "Oh God, you know that guy? Oh man, Lou."
So as a host of the show here, I have to ask: would you come back again one day?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I'm not doing any public appearances really. I'm not doing any as far as podcasts or anything. I've got a couple commitments that I have to see through that I've made previously. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. When the time comes, and if I start coming out more publicly, I will absolutely do yours. No problem at all. But I just can't commit right now because I'm not really.
We're not asking that.
I'm not. I'm doing more work behind the shadows, and believe me, that's exactly where you want me right now.
Yeah, and the next time you come back on, we'll talk about more information about the charity that we're all going to put together to help our veterans.
Once again, sooner rather than later. Let's do that.
And Rob, if you have anything to say, the floor is yours.
I'm just hoping by the time, if and when we do get you back on, we've already wrapped up the charity program and it was successsul. So
I'll tell you, if we do the charity thing, we'll come on and do just a special for that. I mean, I'll see if I can get some good buddies of mine too that maybe some people would know, name recognition to come out and support it too. I've got a short list of people that we could probably put on and kind of do a bit of a question and answer.
Let's do that then.
Could be good. Yeah, happy to do it for sure.
All right, Lou, thank you so much for being a great friend. Thank you for being my first guest on the show. We've been playing on this for a while, and now I've got Rob Heatherly to keep me on track here.
Shannon, my honor and privilege. Thank you so much for what you're doing, and I look forward to watching and listening to future broadcasts that you have.
Yep, and I'll keep sharing my pictures of my puppy, and tell your wife hello from all of us here at Military Witnesses to UAP. And thanks again, and you have a great day, sir.
You got it, guys. Take care. God bless.
Bye-bye. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and make sure you hit that notification for our upcoming video.